Good afternoon. I spent the last 30 years, it's hard to believe, working with people entrapped in poverty, many living in destitution, in constant violent aggravation. People whose dreams have dried up, who don't believe that tomorrow can be any different from today or from yesterday. This has been a long and difficult journey for me, an unpredictable one fraught with gnawing doubt and often anxiety. And it continues so. At the same time, it is intellectually challenging, emotionally demanding, and spiritually compelling. I'm the founder and director of Atzin, a small nonprofit working in the mountains of South Mexico, now with sister organizations in Canada and the United States. These photos, taken by Rodrigo Cruz in 2010, are of Tlamacazapa, a village of 6,000 people with whom I have worked for the last 15 years. I will briefly describe this village and its situation, our work there, and then go on to talk about personal discoveries, giving examples of events that were embedded in everyday life and that caused me to pause and think about development and about poverty and its resolution and about myself. To reflect on human behavior. These experiences continue to pile up one by one, often intensely. And sometimes the smallest incident reveals a wealth of knowledge. Tlamacazapa, the villagers earn a precarious living by weaving palm baskets, an ancient art that they have preserved over centuries, although they're not always aware of it. 60% of the people live in stick houses with tar paper roofs, with little furniture or protection from the wind and the rain and the cold. Daily life is hard, heavy, and uncertain. Twice a day, the poorest families eat tortillas, sometimes with nothing but salt. Many villagers are malnourished and suffer from intestinal parasites. Roughly 40% of the children do not attend school, and 75% of the women remain illiterate. Water is a constant problem. In the dry season, the wells dry up. And the wet season, they fill up with a dirty sewage of garbage and excrement. In 2001, water was pumped from the spring 5 kilometers away, but now that water is sold. It became an economic commodity instead of a natural resource that we all need. And the poorest families cannot buy it, and so return to the well. To make matters worse, our laboratory studies reveal arsenic and lead in their water and soil. Now, these are natural but harmful metals. Toxic metals are also found in their palm dyes and in their clay cooking pots. The combination of malnutrition and exposure to multiple metals, even at low levels, constitutes a toxic synergy and a silent crisis of slow poisoning. There are other factors as well, just to round out this context. Alcoholism among men, the women don't drink. A norm of macho attitudes, domestic abuse, and a serious loss of traditional culture and language. A strong belief in witchcraft have all resulted in a culture of nasty gossip, of distrust, of fear, and of despair. Women speak of ignorance, of their own illness, of sadness over the many deaths. Families were trapped in a downhill spiral of poverty, coupled with hopelessness. We concentrated in this one setting because of its numbers, 6,000 people, and its sheer complexity, and a growing recognition that Tlamacazapa is a microcosm of our world situation. For the most part, 3 themes define village reality: a physical world of contamination and disintegration of the environment, a social world of economic poverty and violence, and an emotional world dominated by fear, resentment, and hate, a poverty of spirit. And these are our global challenges as well. For each of these, we have a desired vision: harmony with nature, peaceful freedom, security, a fulfillment of basic needs, love, happiness, and courage within ourselves and with others. But the important question has always been how to create a holistic movement towards that vision. Now, evolving gradually since 1997, Atzin programs focus on 4 integrated sectors: health and healing, with midwives, safe motherhood programs, special needs programs for adults and children, income generation for women, the sewers workshop, the environment, this is the introduction of rocket stoves, water and sanitation, with the building of dry toilets and rainwater catchment tanks, literacy for women and for children, community education, bringing youth and women together in many, many circles, the learning of energy healing, and of course, celebrations and fun. Progress has been hard-won under demanding circumstances, and there was a sense of movement among women starting 3 years ago, after 12 years of work. Let me talk about 4 defining moments. One day, years ago, 2 women were having a soya demo high in the mountain, and I invited Salome, a friend of mine, a weaver, and a mother of 5, to come with me. And as we walked along, she said to me, "Susan, you walk all over this village, and I've never been here." You can imagine my surprise. We were all of 2 blocks from her house. I said, the world that I thought was so small for her was actually yet much smaller. I asked myself, am I able to see the world through her eyes, at least at times? If I visit Salome and I check out the kitchen area of her house, there's next to nothing there. There's no pantry, no food reserved for tomorrow. And yet she has the constant daily pressure of producing enough food for her children and family of 7 people. If she doesn't weave and finish a basket, there's nothing to sell. Talk about stress. I must be very conscious of the implications of any requests that make of her, even to come to a meeting. Or health messages. For example, boil your water. Am I truly conscious? Am I aware of the work required? Go get the water. Go get the firewood. Make the fire. Boil the water, and then do it every day. It seems so simple to say. I must take care not to increase the burden of guilt on Salome, that she is not able to adequately care for her children. With the family earning less than $1 a day per person, Salome's problem is acute poverty. And I must ask myself, and about any program, do I have the right perspective, including that of Salome? What is the right starting point, understanding her world as it is, and that she's doing her best every day with what she has? What are the costs, the pressures, the possible benefits? What about community participation? How do people learn to authentically participate who have never had that opportunity? After all, they are the owners of the problem. They are the ones impacted by the problems. Well, sometime later, I'm standing at a distance, and Maria is answering questions posed by a young man, very earnest young man, who's filling out a government survey. He finishes, thanks her, she returns, and I say to her in amazement, "Nothing you said to him was true, not even your name." And she laughed and said, "No, it wasn't true. Why should I tell him anything? Who is he anyway?" And I thought about that. When all people own is their name, why would they give it away to every Tom, Dick, and Harry who comes asking for it? Her privacy is her defense. Her privacy is her protection. Her privacy is hers. And I again realize that trust takes time, and especially in tough places, tough to earn. I think about my questions and the pressures that they evoke, and I think about the tensions that I produce through constant questioning and asking. I open my senses, my ears, my eyes, my smell, my touch, my intuition. And I become my own research instrument, absorbing information, sorting it out, learning from it. I learn to pay attention to the small details, the lift of an eyebrow, the quick look that passes between husband and wife, the sudden silence of an abused woman. I pay attention and I learn from it. But this requires me to stop talking, to stop questioning, and to absorb, to attend. How does one learn to see an anxious tremble? How does one learn to see a nervous shifting of weight, a gathering of courage, and a leap of faith? To look is one thing, but to see is another. The failure to notice is our downfall, and to attend is learned with patience. I begin to differentiate more clearly between spiritual and economic poverty and the consequences of that spirit loss. The passivity, the fear, the hate, greed, laziness, the inner oppression that occurs and constitutes a pit of negativity. Now, I have to be clear. Poverty of spirit happens among the rich and the poor. We all know wealthy people whose behavior is spiritually bankrupt. It crosses all strata. But people who are weakened with inner oppression, who are weakened with insecurities, possess little vision for their future. They are reactive, in effect saying, "What do I want? I don't know. Tell me." And they who are severely oppressed accept a life marked by dependency, manipulation, misery, and often an early death. When working with these two types of poverties, there are no magic bullets, no quick and dirty solutions, no project intervention that with an in and out and we're done type of approach that will work. Not even if it's about vitamin A, pouring of concrete floors, vaccines, you name it, rocket stoves, you name it. No, these problems are more complex and we require more complex thinking. Individuals grow on different fronts at different times, but first, the taste of freedom must be experienced. This, an actual experience of a new self, must be established. This shakes up mindsets, rigidity, and habits. Tight strands of distrust are slowly loosened and, with time, rupture. This allows the birth of a new dimension of the self. Herein lies the real work of development, the creation of many opportunities to try out something new, to risk, to stretch beyond what is known already. Shimmers of possibility appear, to trust, to listen long, to be heard, to take enough time, to gather courage, and to take action. People heal as fear decreases and confidence rises. These empowering moments strengthen spirit and intention and awaken new beliefs in the self and therefore in the other. Brett, another defining moment, arrives as a new volunteer. He's a science grad. He's new, he's keen, he's young, perhaps like many of you here. And after 4 months of hard work, we asked him to evaluate his experience. And he thought about it, and he said, Here I have learned to feel again. What a glorious statement. When we commit and we do right action in service of others, our ego is put to one side. Cynicism, emptiness, loneliness, and emotional numbing diminish. That glass bubble of self-protection fractures and then breaks. A yearning for meaningful purpose arises, and that yearning can be deep and lead to vocation. Years ago now, a visitor named Peter and I walked up the steep paths of Tlamacazapa, sweating. We were going to the highest well, and beads of sweat were rolling down. And the people saw our plight, invited us in, asked us to sit on their low little chairs. We stopped often to catch our breaths, and on our way back, stumbling occasionally over the rocks, Peter turns to me. He's a physician by training, and he says, "Susan, you know so many people here, and they know you. You can't keep this up, you know. You won't be objective. And besides, you'll burn out." Well, his words gave me pause. I thought he had it exactly backwards. My relationship to people is personal, not objective. My relationship with my work is personal. It is of me. And only when personal is it possible to keep up that work over time, especially under difficult circumstances and difficult people. Social justice then becomes personal. Everything is subjective. All information, all knowledge pass through human filters of values, perception, and decisions. There is no objectivity. Constant keeping a certain distance and objectivity eventually leads to not only a safe distance, but a detachment from daily reality, and this leads to the emotional numbing. Now, I'm not talking about being a nosy neighbor or a bleeding heart or a sloppy analyst, all of which are annoying. I am saying, take a deep breath, gather your courage, come close, and enter into a process of action and reflection. Strategic action with deliberate moments of reflection. The conversation with the self. Action alone is chaotic, reflection alone is passive. But when grounded in daily reality, the dialectic of action and reflection, watch it and see the unfolding of many small moments of realization. This is the awakening of the self. It is the flowering of consciousness and of understanding. What matters is the awakening. It is a privilege to work with the poor and the destitute. They act as our mirror. We look in that mirror and we see ourselves. We come face to face and we ask ourselves, who am I? What do I believe in? What do I need to learn? What do I need to change? What is my work? We are tested again and again. We develop a thicker skin and a sense of discernment. I ask myself, what does loving compassion look like? And sharp images appear on my inner eye, the toughened palm of the laboring father giving a tender look to the child working alongside, the mother stirring simple food over a 3-rock fire, looking much older than her years, to give to the children who are waiting, the women shrouded in shawls, seated in a row, accompanying the relative who is dying. The volunteer plugging away day after day, entering data, an absolutely boring but necessary task. And the angry words of a woman who finally protests an unjust action. This is loving compassion. And when we are compassionate, we feel for the other. their joys and their miseries. Our egos, again, are put to one side, and we strike a responsive chord with the other. We feel as he or she feels. We see the world as he or she sees the world. And our spirit expands and reaches out to the one in pain. This vibrational memory is retained. It becomes part of us, and our spirit itself grows, and we become bigger people. This ability to be compassionate is the sign of the truly educated person. The task is to build within, to nurture the inner conditions for happiness, so that ugly circumstances can be passed through and resolved and not carried as hate and resentment and all the negative emotions. When we are on the right path, we gain strength. We don't fear failure. We fall in love with our work and our world. So often the answer is right there. Stop fixing. Come close. Dare. Listen long. Work hard. Speak up. Seek silence and pray. Fear will fall and confidence will rise. And the many means for enabling more enriched lives will become clear. This is what I have learned and what has sustained me. I know that true development work requires resolve, a persistent, patient determination, and only this will maintain our efforts to achieve that vision. Once the romance and the adventure have worn off, maybe after a month, some say after the first weekend, when you got the fleas and you don't know what to do with them, then it's just plain hard work with moments of triumph. The pursuit of meaningful purpose leads us to discover inner peace, life in life, and a commitment to loving actions awaken us to rejuvenating belief in ourselves and thus in the other, to a sense of grace. We can imagine being in a new way, interacting in a new way, and we can resolve to make that hopeful image real. And for me, this is the spirit of enterprise. Thank you.